the June presentation. As you probably can tell, I am not John Vredenberg, so I am going to be your host and presenter today. My name is Nick Tennant. I'm an on-site Gator Care Wellness Coordinator in the Jacksonville office. So John asked me to come speak today, and we're going to be talking about making physical activity count. So we're actually going to take a look at what physical activity is, how it may differ from exercise. So a lot of times we hear those terms used interchangeably, but they sort of mean two different things. So the goal of today's lecture and the goal of today's presentation is really just to get up and move more. So we'll take a look and how we're going to rethink what physical activity means and what really moving, just getting up and standing and moving around, what benefits that can do for our health and our pursuit to help manage our diabetes on our own. So as a reminder, remember with Diabetes University, you attend whatever sessions best interest you or most interest you. If you miss a month or something may not be of a topic of interest for you, you can choose other ones that do. Now, do remember that all the sessions are virtual and they will be recorded. So if you can't attend any of the sessions live, you'll have the opportunity to watch them on demand. So we will record these, including today's. John is out of the office, so he will be able to send you a link to this recording beginning on Monday. So next week, he can send you a recording of this as well as a copy of the presentation itself. And as a reminder, remember to complete that post session quiz. So it's about a 6-question, roughly 5-6 questions that you'll answer about the presentation that you just listened to. Remember that if you are on the Jacksonville Gator Care and you are working towards your wellness credit, you attend 6 of the sessions, you get 100 points towards your wellness credit. But remember to complete that post-class assessment, because that is basically the way we keep track of attendance. So if you don't complete that, we don't know that you actually attended. So that gives everyone that watches it on demand or virtually or can't attend in person, or excuse me, live, that gives them the opportunity to get that credit as well. So when we look at today's lesson and what we're really going to be going over, we're going to understand what impact exercise has on our blood glucose. We're also going to review physical activity and exercise guidelines for persons with diabetes. So how does it differ from regular guidelines, and what type of activities or physical activities should we be looking to do? And we're going to outline some examples of aerobic resistance and flexibility exercises. So don't worry, I'll go through the definitions of those and what they mean and why we should incorporate all 3 of them within our regimen. And then we're going to develop some strategies to incorporate physical activity into your life. So like I said, the main goal of today's lesson is to get up and get moving more than we do. We live such a sedentary lifestyle. Maybe our job requires us to be sedentary. We get home, we're probably exhausted from our job. We tend to sit down and just try to relax, but we're going to look at ways that we can sneak some physical activity into our daily lives. So that way it may not be such a task or a burden to get that total threshold of minutes we should be aiming for into each day. So first, before we go into this, I want to define physical activity, exercise, and physical fitness. Oftentimes you hear these things used interchangeably, but physical activity is defined as a movement that is carried out by the skeletal muscles that require energy. Basically, if you're not sitting or you're not laying in place, you're being physically active if you're moving your body, because your body requires energy to move. Whereas exercise is a planned, structured, or intentional movement intended to improve or maintain physical fitness. So what you see with exercise are things that you plan to do. So if you plan to go for a run, or you plan to go for a swim, or you plan to go to yoga or ride your bike, things like that. While that is physical activity, it is a structured part of it, so that is considered exercise. So while you're being physically active, you can also engage in exercise. And physical fitness is defined as the ability to carry out daily tasks with stamina and with ample energy to enjoy leisure time pursuits. So as we increase our exercise, as we increase our physical activity, we'll also see our physical fitness improve. And that's the main goal. And the thing to keep in mind throughout this entire presentation is that all physical activity, all and any, so any more that we're doing right now can positively impact our blood glucose, our overall health, and our well-being. So even if we can't get the total amount, it shouldn't be an all or nothing idea. As long as we can incorporate more physical activity or if we can incorporate some throughout our day, we're going to see more benefits than if we don't do anything at all. So sit less and move more. Bouts of physical activity do not completely offset the negative effects of a sedentary lifestyle centered around sitting. So if you are sitting for more than 30 minutes at a time throughout the day, try to break that up. Try to get up and stand, maybe do some stretches or some exercises, or maybe just take a short walk. So what you're trying to do is break up those long bouts of sitting. So again, if you're sitting for more than 30 minutes at a time each day, try to break those sessions up, whether you stand up and do some stretching, whether you walk around, whatever you want to do, just try to break up those sessions of long, prolonged sitting so you can get some physical activity incorporated. And a 2010 study reported that people who spent more than 6 hours per day sitting and that had low levels of physical activity had a 71% increase in mortality rate. So again, our idea here, our goal is just to break up those long terms, those long bouts of sitting, long bouts of sedentary lifestyle. So what we're going to try to do is just create an atmosphere where we can move more. When we look at exercise and diabetes specifically, it is a critical component to diabetes self-management. I know John's probably talked to you a lot about a lot of topics surrounding diabetes, about nutrition, maybe about medications and things like that. But physical activity, being physically active is a critical component to that as well. It boosts our physical fitness. So remember, that is our stamina. That's how, as we become more physically active, as we exercise more, we increase our physical fitness. So we're able to do our daily tasks, our leisurely activities a lot better and more efficiently. It helps manage our weight, keep our weight loss or weight goals in check. Lowers our risk for heart disease and improves our overall well-being. And we'll touch on some of what those overall well-being aspects of exercise also include later in this lecture. Now, there are two key ways that exercise improves blood sugar levels. The first one is insulin sensitivity is increased. So muscle cells are better able to use available insulin to take up glucose. The second is when muscles contract, the cells take up more glucose independent of insulin. Okay, so what we're trying to do when we talk about exercise and physical activity is we're trying to create all these different goals that we can do, but we'll also see the outputs, not only in our overall health and well-being, but as it pertains to our diabetes. Now, exercise and blood sugar, the impact of physical activity on blood sugar depends on a lot of different factors. That includes on how often or how much you are active and how intense that exercise is. So if you look on the graph on your screen there, with the baseline being no exercise, so you're not having any risk really of hypoglycemia or anything like that. Um, Carol, I'm not sure why. I just got your message. I'm not sure why the audio is not coming through. Um, try to dial in on your phone if you're not, and see if you can get the audio that way. But as a reminder, Carol, this will also be recorded, so you'll have the opportunity to go back and watch on your own as well. So hopefully that will work out any kinks that's going on right now for you. Now, so what you want to see here is that the biggest impact or the biggest decrease in your reduction in the prevalence of hypoglycemia occurs at that moderate intensity of physical activity. So when we talk about I'll talk about what moderate intensity is, but as you can see, even the high intensity exercise, it still has less prevalence of hypoglycemia than if you were to not engage in any physical activity at all. Now, blood sugar levels can be impacted up to 24 hours after exercise. So as glycogen stores are reloaded with sugar. Now, what you should do before engaging in any type of exercise, and this is important, check your blood sugar before and after, okay? Exercise will affect everyone differently, okay? So what you wanna do is check your blood sugar before, see what your total is after. So then you can see how that activity affects your blood glucose levels. Um, And the idea here is that, again, it varies from person to person. So this will give you a better understanding before you engage in certain activities, what changes you can expect to see in your blood glucose. Talk about hypoglycemia. You heard me touch on it on the last slide. So if you take insulin, you are at an increased risk of hypoglycemia during exercise, but it is not a contraindication for being active. So in other words, just because you are on insulin and that you are at an increased risk, it does not mean that you should not engage in exercise because of that. It is typically recommended that you have a glucose of above 100 before initiating exercise. And for instance, if you do not have it, if it is not above 100, and if you experience that hypoglycemia, which you'll follow under 70, you follow that 15-15 rule. So take 15 to 20 grams of carbs. That can be from your glucose tablets, some juice, the gels, and wait 15 minutes and recheck your glucose. And if it's still under that 70, make sure again to take an additional 15 grams of carbs and then wait another 15 minutes until you can get it above that 100 milligrams, and then above that 70 obviously is what we want to do to avoid hypoglycemia. Other benefits of physical activity, well, it reduces our fat mass and increases our muscle mass. So as we exercise and become more physically active, we turn some of that fat mass, we reduce that and increase our muscle mass. It helps maintain our bone density and improves our cholesterol. We also reduce our risk of not only the risk factors with diabetes, but also hypertension, coronary heart disease, stroke, and various types of cancer. It improves our sleep. So those of us that struggle with getting a right amount of sleep or falling asleep at night, regular physical activity, regular exercise aids in improving our sleep. It also improves our mood and reduces our stress. So for those of us that are familiar with the stress response in the body and the stronger contractions of the heart muscle and the quicker breathing, when we're in a chronic state of stress, our body takes a toll because of that. Well, exercise, regular physical activity actually has the opposite effect that the stress effect has on the body. It can also help boost our mood as well. And obviously, it can improve our blood pressure. Now, when we talk about the different types of exercise and which ones we should be engaging in, we're really combining or spreading them out into two different categories. And that's going to be either your aerobic or your anaerobic. Now, the American College of Sports Medicine, they define aerobic exercise as any activity that uses large muscle groups, can be maintained continuously, and is rhythmic in nature. So when we talk about aerobic exercise, we think of our walking, our running, our biking, dancing, swimming, things like that. On the other hand, anaerobic exercise has been defined by the ACSM as an intense physical activity of very short duration. And it's usually fueled by the energy sources within the contracting muscle, and it's independent of use of inhaled oxygen as an energy source. So these workouts are usually like your 40-yard dash, your powerlifting, some HIIT workouts, things like that. So an easy way to remember to distinguish the two is aerobic means with oxygen, so you're using oxygen as an energy source. Anaerobic means without oxygen, so you are not using oxygen as your energy source for that activity. Now, unfortunately, since the pandemic and since our sedentary lifestyles have increased, we've also had anaerobic exercises, which could be binge watching TV, playing cornhole, PlayStation, maybe power napping. So we want to try to shift away from the anaerobic exercises and try to incorporate some of these strength and aerobic exercises. Now, resistance and flexibility exercises, these tend to fall into, mostly the resistance will fall into that anaerobic category. And we want to incorporate resistance and flexibility throughout our exercise routine. Now, resistance exercises, they can be done with your body weight. So you do not have to have a set of weights or anything like that. They can be things like lunges, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, lifting, any type of activity where you're using where you're having some external resistance. And that's basically what your resistance exercises are. Now, flexibility exercises, these are definitely something I need to work on. That's our stretching, yoga, Pilates, things like that. And with flexibility exercise, you're going to try to hold the stretch for at least 10 to 30 seconds. for each stretch that you do, and then repeat. So you don't want to just go through once, and you don't want to just stretch it for 5 seconds. You want to alternate each one and then go back through and repeat. When we talk about setting our plan and our goals for physical activity, what we should be doing, and what the parameters should be, we look at the FIT principle, and that means frequency, intensity, time, and type. So when we talk about frequency, it's how often we're doing these exercises, how often we're going to be physically active. Intensity is how hard. So you saw that graph of vigorous all the way down to moderate to none. Um, or low intensity. So we'll talk about that. Time is how long and what time of day we're exercising. And the type is what kind we're going to be doing. So when we're creating our goals of what we should be doing for exercise, we're going to look at this FIT principle. So frequency, we should be aiming for 150 minutes per week. Okay, so our goal for our exercise or our physical activity should be 150 minutes per week. The intensity should be of moderate intensity. Now, what is moderate intensity? It can be as simple as 30-minute brisk walks each day. So the brisk walk can get you that moderate intensity, and that will fulfill your requirement for the intensity level. Now, your time is 150 minutes, but it should be spread out through the week. In other words, you shouldn't just have 2 days of physical activity. You should spread it across the week. And type, you should have the bulk of your exercise should be aerobic. Remember that you're walking, you're biking, you're swimming, you're dancing, things like that. And then sprinkle in 2 days of strength and resistance and flexibility training, at least 2 days of that. What you're trying to do is so you're trying to avoid 2 consecutive days without some form of physical activity. So if you need an off day, if you need a rest day and you just can't get things done, it's okay. You can take that day, you can take that day of break. Just try not to stretch it into 2 consecutive days that you're not being physically active. And even on those off days, see if you can just get up and not sit down for long extended periods of time. So moving past the roadblocks, a lot of times we'll get people that come in and say they want to exercise, they want to be physically fit, but there's a lot of things stopping them. The first one is I don't have time. That's the first thing that we hear. I just don't have the time to fit in exercise throughout the day. Make a plan. You know your schedule. Now, things come up, obviously, but as you start to make exercise a routine and you make a plan and you write it down, you'll start to find out times of your day where you're able to squeeze in physical activity. Remember, even if you can't fit in 30 minutes at a time. Say, for instance, you can't get that 30-minute walk in. You can break it up into 10-minute segments. So, for instance, if you just, you don't have a 30-minute chunk of time out of the day, how about do you have 3 10-minute segments? So you can take 3 10-minute brisk walks throughout the day, and that will cumulatively get you up to your 30 minutes that you need. Another roadblock we hear is there's just no desire. I just don't have the motivation to really get out there and exercise. Planning helps. You'll hear me say plan all the time, but plan, plan, plan. The more you have it written down, the more it's right in front of you, the more motivation you have to keep that going. And find a workout partner, even if it has to be virtual. Just have that accountability partner that encourages you when you don't think you have the energy or don't think you have the motivation of going. Reach out to that support system, reach out to that accountability partner so they can provide you with the motivation to keep going. And remind yourself this is for your health. This is to improve your health and to improve your quality of life, and doing it only helps it. Other roadblocks that we hear is there's just no energy. I don't have, I go to work, I'm so exhausted by the time I get home, and then I have kids and family, and I have to cook dinner, and then, it's rinse and repeat, and we're on to the next day. Well, exercise when you're most energized. For me, if I try to exercise after work, there's no chance it's getting done. So what do? I wake up earlier in the morning. I make sure to get my physical activity in. But if people ask me to do it at night, I simply wouldn't. I wouldn't have the motivation nor the energy to do it. I'm a morning person, so that's when I exercise. So find out in your life when is the most, or when you are most energized and when you have the most time, and incorporate physical activity into that. And remember that any kind of physical activity, any amount of physical activity is better than none. You're lapping yourself as if you were sitting on the couch before. So you're still getting more than you would have had prior. So remember, any type of physical activity is better than none. And also remember that physical activity and exercise increases your energy. So not only are you may not be energized, but as you're exercising, it actually short term increases your energy levels. And then by the time you're ready to go to bed at night, you will have an improvement in sleep quality as well. Other ones we hear are no support, but let your friends and family know your goals. Fine, or if they, if they're not supportive of your goals, reach out to us in wellness. We can be that accountability person. We can be that support system for you, so you can help achieve those goals. And even if you can't, if you still have that workout partner we talked about, they can help with that support system as well. Lastly, we hear that it's just too expensive to work out, but you can be physically active at home. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need to go to CrossFit. You don't need to, get a personal trainer per se to be physically active. So you can be physically active at your home with your own body weight. There's no need for gym memberships. We also have stream fitness classes available for you all that do not live behind the firewall. I'll share the link at the end of this presentation as well, but you can go via gatorcare.org. We have anything from yoga to Tai Chi to HIIT workouts to stretching to desk exercises. So we have a ton of free classes out there that you can utilize. We also hear that it's just too difficult to exercise. And I get that. There are a lot of things, like if someone asked me to go to yoga every day, I probably would not go at all. I've tried yoga and it's unfortunately it's not my favorite activity to do, but I enjoy running. Running for me is a fun activity, and other people look at me like I'm crazy. And so it varies from person to person. So find an activity, something that you do that you like to do that's fun. Maybe it's swimming, maybe it's going for a bike ride, maybe it's going for walks, maybe it is yoga or Tai Chi or Zumba, dancing, gardening. Find something that you can be physically active where you're moving and you're not sitting down that's fun for you, and make it a routine. And remember that even 30 minutes of walking helps. So if you can get 30 minutes of brisk walking throughout your 24-hour day, it could go a long way in improving your health. So, as you heard me say multiple times, to make a plan, this is just an example of a plan on the CDC website. Moderate physical activity and including those 2 days a week of strength training. So, even as you can see, there are 5 days a week of that aerobic activity, which is that at moderate, those brisk walks that we talked about, and then 2 days a week that were spread out so they're not back to back of that weight training or that strength and resistance training that we talked about. Again, you can take a day off if you need to. Don't think that this is the only plan. We're just trying to avoid those two consecutive lapses or 2 consecutive days with no physical activity. So, what are some ideas? Well, walk, jog, run, bike, all that stuff outside when it's safe. And I say when it's safe, when you feel comfortable, when other people probably can see you. So, um, go during less hot times or peak times. We live in Florida, summer, and I don't think it can get much hotter, in the middle of the day. So if you try to avoid those times a day and bring some water just in case, stay hydrated. That's important for your health as well. Utilize our free virtual fitness classes, as I mentioned before. There's your link, but you can also go to gatorcare.org and go to the wellness page, and there's a video library of all the different fitness classes that we have. So you can access those at home. Again, you don't have to have or be on the VPN, or it's not behind the firewall or anything. You have access to those at any time. There's a lot of free virtual streaming or virtual classes on YouTube and things like that. My personal favorite is the first one listed, Fitness Blender. Whenever I go look to do kind of like a strength workout or something like that, I go to Fitness Blender. They do a great job of providing a wide range of activities as well as offering modifications. So if you have past injuries or something that may prohibit you from completing an activity the way it's designed to be completed, they have modifications so you get the most out of your exercise as well. Here's some other ideas. Now that sports are back and we're still binge watching TV, here's something I like to incorporate so you can sneak in physical activity while you're doing other things. Maybe when the Jaguars come back, let's say you're a Jags fan, you jog in place while the clock is running during the game. And anytime the clock stops, you can take a short break, and then you jog back again when the clock starts running. or do squats, jumping jacks, or hold planks during commercial breaks of shows or games. And then assign physical activities for each time your team scores or the opposing team scores. So maybe the Jags score a touchdown and you have to do X amount of sit-ups, or if the other team scores, you have to do push-ups. You can also do this binge watching TV. So I think we all do that at some point. So alternate lunges when certain characters are on the screen, or a catchphrase is used, or instead of clicking the episode, we're so used to not having commercials with our streaming services. Instead of just continuing on to the next episode, maybe hold a plank or do a wall sit while you're waiting for that next episode to load, and then you have the credits rolling as well. And then something I like including is stretching. Remember, we like our flexibility exercises. Maybe stretch during that last episode. So you want to be able to stretch before or especially after your exercises. So make sure to incorporate that. So at the last episode that you're watching, make sure to get your flexibility in and your stretching in as well. Some other ideas of aerobic activities, like I said, you can dance, jump rope, do exercise videos, walk, go for a bicycle ride, gardening, lawn work. Remember, the idea here is just to sit down less sitting and more moving. So if we can just remember those 30 minutes of time, we don't want to go over that where we're sitting for long extended periods of time. So let's just get up, stand, do some stretching, and move around a little bit. So as a reminder, activity guidelines with diabetes. So pre-exercise medical clearance is generally unnecessary, and it's prior to beginning low or moderate intensity activity. So not exceeding the demands of brisk walking. So if you're going to get into more demanding types of exercises or physical activity, you should speak with your medical provider just to make sure that they know your plan and they can give you some better recommendations based on your health history. And remember, daily exercise, or at least not allowing those 2-day lapses where we're not doing any type of physical activity, is recommended to enhance that insulin action. And so when we talk about how much, what type of exercise we should be doing, it's a combination of that aerobic and that resistance exercise. And that is recommended for optimal blood sugar and health outcomes. So we're looking at 150 minutes per week, and that's that moderate or to vigorous physical activity. And what we're looking at then is 2 to 3 sessions per week of resistance training. And then remember, those are on non-consecutive days. So our idea here is to spread it out through the week, not have back-to-back days where we're not doing anything, and then not have back-to-back days where it's just our strength training is back-to-back. So remember just to spread it out throughout the week. But you can incorporate things just like parking further away. So if you go to the grocery store and you're fighting like me, I go to Costco and it's a stress situation because that parking lot is crowded. Costco shopping in general is stressful. Maybe park towards the back of the parking lot so you're not in all that chaos. Not only will that help your stress, but then you're walking for a longer period of time, or take the stairs if you're able to instead of the elevator. Just find little ways to incorporate more physical activity in your day. So questions, I left John's email on the screen so you guys can reach out to him if you do have any questions. The post-class quiz is on your screen. There's a link above there, but you can scan it with your smartphone. Remember that he is out right now, but he will send a copy of this presentation, as well as a link to the recording of this and a link to the post-class assessment. So if you can't fill out that quiz right now, don't worry, John will be able to come back and send you an email with a follow-up with all this information. And remember, next month, July 15th, we'll be talking about caring for your feet and diabetes. So hope you all can join us. I thank you for joining me again today, and I'll hang around if there are any questions, but if not, thank you again and have a great rest of your week.